In this video, Dr. Jordan Peterson explains why you need to look into things you're avoiding.
So anyways, the dissociability idea is a really good one. I mean, if you want to get to know yourself better, and this is sort of a combination of Freudian and Jungian ideas, one of the things to do is so imagine that you have some sort of goal in mind. The first question that you might ask yourself is, why do you have that goal? What are the influences on you that have set that goal up? Because it easily could be conscious or partially conscious, or poorly explained or implicit, any of those things. So you want to know that. Why are you doing what you're doing? And the second thing is, if you find yourself avoiding things on the way to that goal, the next question is, why are you avoiding them? And, that'll mean delving into parts of yourself that are quite hidden and quite uncomfortable. So, for example, if you discover that the reason you're pursuing a particular goal is because it's what your parents want you to do, one question that immediately arises is, yeah, but is that what you want to do? And, that's a very complicated question, because you'd have to dissociate the part of you that's the you that doesn't want to do it from the part of you that's the you that does want to do it, and then you have to figure out why in the world you'd be avoiding. So, it might be that you're unbelievably angry that you've been tilted towards this particular goal for reasons that have nothing to do with your choice, and so that every time you have the opportunity to study or accomplish something that would move you farther to that goal, you're either not motivated, so you can't pay attention, you can't study, you can't learn, and you procrastinate all the time, or you actually do seriously counterproductive things. So people, for example, can be... I just had someone write me here a while ago, because he was watching the YouTube lectures, and he said that he had dreams for 6 weeks that he drove his car off a cliff and crashed it. And then at the end of the dream series, he drove his car off the cliff and crashed it. And he asked me what that meant. And I said, well, the dream is telling you that you're being far too careless with your life. Like, that's what driving a car off a cliff repeatedly means. It's like, that's a good descent, unconscious descent into the underworld. Well, and he was being warned, the psychological reality was such that the warning was extremely serious, and so was the danger. And so then you might say, well, why would he drive himself off a cliff? Well, that's a suicidal gesture. And then you might ask, well, why would somebody be suicidal? And that could be, well, they're out for revenge against their parents, or they're out for revenge against the whole world, or they're out for revenge against themselves, or they just want to make their painful consciousness go away, or they're living a messy and pointless and painful life, and they want to punish themselves for it. And it's very, very complicated and tangled down there at the bottom of things. And people don't really like to look into it. And I suppose to some degree that's the shadow element. Because what you find there is seldom what you want. I mean, one of the prime dictums of Jungian psychotherapy, and most psychotherapies are predicated on the idea that you should find out what you're avoiding, and then you should figure out how to voluntarily face it. Now, you might add to that, you should find out what you're doing and why, and see if that's actually what you want to be doing, and if those reasons are reasons you like. That might, in some sense, sum up therapy in a couple of phrases. But in order to manage that, then you have to look at all the things you've been avoiding. Well, what do you avoid? Well, it isn't rainbows and cookies, right? The things that you avoid are the things that no one wants to look at. And so Jung's primary dictum for his psychotherapeutic practice was a Latin phrase, which is in sterquilinus invenatur, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, which means either in filth it will be found, or where you want most is to be found where you least want to look. And that's a horrible philosophy. But you can see that it's almost self-fulfilling, because of course the things you're going to avoid are the things that you don't want to face, obviously. Now, the shadow element of the psyche, in some sense, when you were watching the movie, for example, you saw these drives, mostly sexual and aggressive, that were manifesting themselves in all sorts of ways, and so that would be maybe the repressed or unincorporated elements of the id. But then there was another more complex side of that, where the, 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 the people were reacting to that, you know, because they felt downtrodden and oppressed and antisocial and critical of social structure and all of that, because they were unable to manifest themselves properly in the world. And that produced fantasies of extreme destruction, exceptional destruction. And for them, they were mostly sexually related. But for other people, that can manifest itself in incredibly violent fantasies about the destruction of society as such. So, if you can't invite all the parts of you out to play, the parts that get left behind are not very happy about it. And they don't just sit around having a tea party. You know, they turn in, especially as you mature, they turn into these warped monsters. And their mode of action in the world is anything but positive. And the Freudian world, and like the world of the psychoanalytic unconscious, is quite a terrifying place, because it makes you second guess everything. It's like, it's not a paranoia, although it's very, very difficult once you're trained psychoanalytically to ever assume that someone's benevolent motivations are only what they claim they are. You're always looking for the other missing piece. And I think it's extremely useful, because, you know, you run into people, particularly ideologues, who will claim that they're acting on the world's behalf. It's like, yeah, who made you a saint? And why should I believe that all the good is on your side? Like, what is it that you're not talking about? What is it that you're not revealing? I got something from Greenpeace once, for example, that was asking for donations. And the brochure was just photographs of all the people who were on the board. I thought, why do I want to see photographs of all the people who are on the board of Greenpeace? Or the other question is, why do they want to show them? Well, you don't have to think very hard to figure that out. You know, it's a status maneuver. What you'd expect in a mail out like that is, you know, here's 6 things that we've done in the last year that improved the planet, and, you know, here's what we spent in relationship to administrative costs, and here's why it was a good idea, not here's our leaders. No, there's something wrong there. And I mean, I picked Greenpeace because it just happened to pop in mind, but it's the case for all sorts of organizations.